day to all. By now, you are almost thorough about the reasons why you should develop your English language skills. Besides enjoying the status of a global language, English language can help you in many other ways. You can see that it is the language of the internet, it is the language of the media industry. Almost all academic and scientific publications are in English. So, acquiring English language skills can help you fly far and wide, whether it be for academic purposes or for employment reasons. Not only that, it gives you an exposure to a wide variety of cultures. You know what researchers say? If you have excellent language skills means reading, listening, speaking and writing, your self-learning skills will be excellent and you will be an independent learner. The world belongs to independent learners. With this objective in our mind, today let's look at one of the interesting lessons in your text from the diary of Anne Frank. The title itself is self-explanatory. You can understand from the name that it is a diary entry. In other words, it is a written record of a personal experience. To study this text, we are not going to depend only on your textbook. On the other hand, we are going to use multiple texts, interestingly, even some movies, to explore the text to the fullest. Before we get into the crux of the text, what do you call such writings which are written records of personal experiences? Does any term come to your mind? Is it autobiography? Is it biography? Let's learn a few other terms which you already might be familiar, but we'll look at it once again. Let's get used to 4 different terms as a part of learning written records of personal experiences. You are already familiar perhaps: diary entries, journal entries, log entries and memoir. M-E-M-O-I-R, which is pronounced as memoir. Let's try to see how they are different from one another, though they all share the common feature as being records of personal experiences. They might overlap, but still there can be slight differences which will help you differentiate one from the other. You are all familiar with a diary, the very book which has different pages with dates, year and the day marked on each page. A book with a separate space or page for each day, in which you write down your thoughts and feelings or what has happened on that day, is a diary. When it is a full record of a journey, a period of time or an event written every day, it can be called a journal. When a famous person records his own life and experiences, it can be called a memoir. If it is a written record of events with times and dates having an official structure, it can be called as a log. If these distinctions are clear to you, let's try 4 different entries and try to see if we can classify them as diary, journal, log or memoir. Remember, the features may overlap, but try to see what are the minute details on each of these entries that can help you figure them out as memoir, log, journal or diary entry. First one, I woke up very late today and promptly got a scolding from mom. I can't help it. How can I miss the FIFA World Cup matches? If you look at the statement written down, you can see that It shows a particular event that happened on a day. It records his personal feelings in the expressions, I can't help it, I can't miss the FIFA Cup matches. So it doesn't look like an official one. So this can be called as a diary entry. Let's try the second one. This is slightly different from the first one. It's written 10:30 a.m. went to the office of the director, 1 p.m. had lunch with chairman, 5:45 p.m. received Rahul at the airport, 9:30 p.m. dinner at home. Needless to say, this has a very official structure with no feelings or expressions involved. So most of you must have identified this as a log. Let's try a third one. The ride to Ooty was uneventful. We rested for a while every 50 kilometers or so and used the time to capture the magnificent landscape with my handycam. From Ooty we went to Bangalore. What a contrast! The noise and pollution of this once beautiful city really broke my heart. The very first sentence of this entry tells you that this is about a journey. It's a record of a journey and it is written every day. So, though this can be confused with a diary entry, this looks more like a journal entry. Let's try a fourth one. Now I think you can differentiate between a memoir, log or a diary entry. This is how Raj Kapoor found me, all wet and ragged outside RK Studios. He was then looking for just someone like this for a small role in Mera Naam Joka, and he cast me on the spot. The rest, as they say, is history. If you look at these words in this entry, Raj Kapoor, RK Studios, Mera Naam Joka, the rest is history, it's very obvious that this is written by a celebrity, somebody from the film industry. So this matches with our definition of personal experience of somebody who is very familiar. And hence we may classify this as a memoir. So those were the basics of personal written records. We learned 4 terms: diary, journal, log and memoir. The text you are going to learn today is a diary entry written by a 13-year-old Jewish girl. Now this girl gains importance as a representative of millions of Jewish people who were mercilessly persecuted and killed during the reign of the German leader Adolf Hitler. It is important that we understand a few phrasal verbs and idiomatic expressions, idiomatic, idiomatic expressions, to understand the gist of the text fully. So before we get into the text, let's try to understand what is an idiomatic expression and how can we understand their meanings from the context. To help you figure out the way of giving meanings to phrasal verbs, we have chosen 4 sentences from the 3rd diary entry in your text. Let's study these sentences carefully. Our entire class is quaking in its boots. Second sentence, until then we keep telling each other not to lose heart. Third one, Mr. Keesing was annoyed with me for ages because I talked so much. Fourth one, Mr. Keesing was trying to play a joke on me with this ridiculous subject, but I'd make sure the joke was on him. The words we have marked in red color are actually idiomatic expressions. Though you might have learned in your lower grades, just go for a recap. Idioms are groups of words with a fixed order and a particular meaning, different from the meanings of each of their words put together. Phrasal verbs can also be idioms. they are said to be idiomatic when their meaning is unpredictable. Let's look at the first sentence once again. Our entire class is quaking in its boots. If you go by the context, somebody who is quaking in their boots can be either excited or noisy or sad or upset. It can have multiple meanings. Even though you don't know the real meaning of that particular idiom, if you read that sentence in that particular context within a paragraph, much of it might be clear to you. For the time being, let's learn the meanings of these 4 idioms we have taken from the text. To be quaking in one's boots means to be trembling with fear. This is often used sarcastically when there is something that is to be expressed in a mocking manner or something to be mentioned in a satirical manner. When the joke is on someone, one is experiencing or will experience a negative outcome, particularly one that was intended for someone else. Or the phrase typically refers to a practical joke or a malicious act that has backfired. When a joke backfires, you suffer the pain of something that was meant for somebody else. I think the next expression is quite easy to figure out the meaning. When you lose heart, you become discouraged, or you lose courage, or you become timid. Timid means you become meek or weak or shy or fearful. Similarly, for ages also is self-explanatory. If something hasn't happened for ages, it hasn't happened for a long time. If ever you come across idioms when you read or when you listen to native speakers or you listen to conversations, this is an easy site for you to refer to the meanings of idiomatic expressions. Just click www.thefreedictionary.com and you can see a separate place for idioms and their meanings. Learning idioms will definitely help you improve your fluency and your quality as an English speaker. Now, I hope you are ready with the 2 essentials you should have, or the prerequisites you should have before getting into the text. You now know what are the names by which you call personal entries, and you can read a few phrasal verbs or idioms in their context. Let's look at the text now. If you see the diary entries, you can see it's written, "Dearest Kitty." It resembles a letter where you normally write, "My dear daddy," "My dear mummy." So the child has written this diary entry in the format of a letter, and there is an address with the word kitty. We call this salutation. The young girl in the diary, or the young girl who writes diary, has actually given the diary a name, that is Kitty. And from the superlative degree she has used, "My dearest Kitty," we understand that she finds this Kitty as a very close friend of hers. Let's look at a few lines from the diary. Writing in a diary is a really strange experience for someone like me. Not only because I've never written anything before, but also because it seems to me that later on, neither I nor anyone else will be interested in the musings of a 13-year-old schoolgirl. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I feel like writing, and I have an even greater need to get all kinds of things off my chest. We can see that the first person point of view in this writing is a mark of such personal recordings. How can you identify a first person point of view? You can see letters like I, or words like me, my, we, us, etc. The first person point of view indicates that the writer is a character in the work, or he or she is a part of the text. So we can say that such works are mostly autobiographical. They are classified as a genre of literary non-fiction. They contain factual information related to the writer's life. As you read through the diary entries, you see her expressing her wish to have Kitty as a friend, and she discloses that there are certain things that she cannot talk to anybody else. When we read through these diary entries, therefore, we can ask a few questions. Why is a 13-year-old girl without any friend? What is it that she cannot talk to other people? What is the context in which she lives? So let's think about basically 3 areas into which we can probe further. One is the nature of the girl or the character of the writer. Second one, the context in which these diary entries are written. And the third one, what are the agonies and traumatic experiences that the society or the family experiences when the child is in the process of writing these diary entries. The diary entry says, I have loving parents and a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends. I have a family, loving aunts, and a good home. No, on the surface I seem to have everything except my one true friend. When you inquire this diary entry further with such questions, a world opens up before you which will enhance your curiosity to research and inquire further. Your textbook also tells you that these diary entries became public documents, and Anne Frank even became one of the most renowned and most popularly discussed figures during the Holocaust. So, isn't that enough matter for us to probe further into the diary entries? What was the context? What was the character of this girl? What are the traumas? What were the feelings that made her feel so urgently the need for a friend? Let's look at the context part now. It dates back to 1942, when the Jews in Germany were persecuted or victimized under the regime of Adolf Hitler. Many families, including that of Anne Frank, had to go into hiding, and Anne Frank and her family went into hiding on the 6th of July 1942 to save themselves from being taken away into a secret place. They went into hiding on the 6th of 1942 to save themselves from being taken away to the concentration camps. The secret place into which they took themselves was called as the Secret Annex, and the Secret Annex was a place hidden behind a bookshelf. When we read the diary entries, we must also try to infer or figure out the character of the young girl who writes these diary entries. From the statements that she has made in the diary, it is easy to understand that she is a very observant child. Her reasoning is very logical. She is intelligent. Sometimes she is even philosophical when she says the paper has more patience than people, or she presents herself as a girl much matured than her real age. A third element we analyze when we read these diary entries is the trauma and the agony. What is meant by trauma? Severe and lasting emotional shock and pain caused by an extremely upsetting experience can be called as trauma. Shocking incidents in one's life can leave permanent scars in the lives of people. The Jews were subjected to severe injustice in the name of their religion, which made them homeless in their own country. They had to keep moving for their survival, always haunted by uncertainty. They were targeted and hunted down, making life an unexplainable crisis for millions of innocent people of Jewish origin. Now let me remind you once again that we are looking at the possibility of using multiple texts to understand or to have a deeper understanding of this one text. Now let's see what the history text tells you about this period in the world history when Adolf Hitler was a very powerful leader in Germany.
The crisis in the economy, polity and society formed the background to Hitler's rise to power. Born in 1889 in Austria, Hitler spent his youth in poverty. When the First World War broke out, he enrolled for the army, acted as a messenger in the front, became a corporal and earned medals for bravery. The German defeat horrified him and the Versailles Treaty made him furious. In 1919, he joined a small group called German Workers' Party. He subsequently took over the organization and renamed it the National Socialist German Workers' Party. This party came to be known as Nazi Party. Hitler was a powerful speaker. His passion and his words moved people. He promised to build a strong nation, undo the injustice of the Versailles Treaty and restore the dignity of German people. He promised employment for those looking for work and a secure future for the youth. He promised to weed out all foreign influences and resist all foreign conspiracies against Germany. Nazi propaganda skillfully projected Hitler as a messiah, a savior, as someone who had arrived to deliver people from their distress. It is an image that captured the imagination of a people whose sense of dignity and pride had been shattered and who were living in a time of acute economic and political crisis.
You have listened to the factual representations in the history text. But we must remember that this period is considered to be one of the worst epochs in the history of mankind. If you happen to read any text that talks about this one epoch, you might come across a few terms which you can see on the screen right now. Holocaust, massacre, extermination, concentration camps, ethnic cleansing, genocide, homicide, Auschwitz. These are all terms that talk about, or these are all terms that throw light into what happened to millions of women, children and men who lived during Hitler's times. So on one side we have the history and on the other side we have Anne Frank's diary. When history gives you an interpretation of the past events or epochs, documents like the letters written by the victims breathe life into the lives of those times. And that is why Anne Frank's diary gained so much of popularity. People came to know about the human side of this crisis from such public documents. Now I'm sure you must be interested to read the complete diary of Anne Frank, which you shouldn't miss. As you go higher up the academic ladder, if history and literature remain your choice subjects, remember, history and literature are subjects that can be learned separately or in synthesis. Interdisciplinary learning always deepens our understanding of the past and the present, helping us to identify are space and significance in the larger order of things. Remember, if history is an interpretation of past events or periods, literature is a product of social, political, intellectual and economic circumstances. They can both supplement and complement one another. Let's look at our points once again. Anne Frank's diaries became a public document after World War II. Anne Frank has become one of the most renowned and discussed of the Holocaust victims. Does this statement hold water now? You are ready to guess the meaning of this idiom now, isn't it? What does the idiom hold water mean? Hold water means to be or appear to be true, verifiable or able to be supported by facts. Now we have seen Anne Frank's letters, we have read the history text, we have gone through the language elements. What other resources can we use to gain a deeper understanding of this text, to make your learning more enjoyable? How about a few movies? Movies have the power of giving you visual representations, and you know, whatever is visual has the power to stay longer in your mind. Can we use movies to understand a text? Why not? Let's try to fill in the gaps further. We'll meet again with another lesson. Till then, it's happy learning from Miss Reena and Miss Vinita. Thank you.